Making headlines this week.
I got to ask the president about the aliens, I was like, dude, no.
Jaden and Will Smith stir up the disclosure pot with President Obama. Truth and discernment. Stepping a bit more deeply into the understanding and practice of these two terms. Banking system fraud. So clear that even a child can explain it. And ending a cycle. Maximizing the unique energies of a once-in-a-26,000-year cycle for creating positive global change.
With news around, upon, within, and beyond our planet, the program making disclosure official. This is Cosmic Vision News. Here is Jeffrey West.
Greetings and blessings to all. It was just over 11 years now that Dr. Stephen Greer held a press conference to bring together the media and numerous sources from governments and civilian agencies that were prepared and willing to testify before the U.S. Congress as to their knowledge of or direct involvement in black budget projects dealing with the existence of civilizations and technologies that were of a non-Earth origin. The timing was perhaps unfortunate because 6 months later, the media and the world would be significantly distracted from the importance of this event by the events of 9/11. In an interview recorded last year on the 10th anniversary of that press conference with Peter Gooch, found on YouTube, Dr. Greer talks about what has happened in 10 years and how things are moving forward, albeit perhaps slowly.
That event and all the follow-on events that have been happening, those are the disclosure moment. In other words, I was never really expecting the President of the United States to disclose things that he, in fact, had no access to. What the Disclosure Project was about was a call for this information to come out and to ask for congressional interest, which there is a great deal of, and also for other governments to begin to act responsibly, which, in fact, they have done. Because if you look in the last 10 years, and particularly in the last 3 or 4, there have been massive releases of information from the French Space Agency, the United Kingdom, Denmark, Chile. I mean, there's a whole list of countries all around the world, which at disclosureproject.org. Just recently in India, there was a cave that was discovered and proven to have artifact drawings of people some 5,000 years ago who drew pictures of things that look exactly like modern UFOs and ETs. A similar cave exists in France with drawings that have been carbon dated to 5,000 years ago. Everyone's aware of the mysterious Nazca lines in Peru. The data is huge. There's some 500,000 confirmed cases in the database. We have now around 4,000 cases where these objects have landed and left physical trace evidence. And there are some 3,500 professional and military pilots, along with radar cases. And it's really from every country, from Mexico and Chile to New Zealand and Australia to France and England to China. There is no one place. I think this is, and it is really the weight of the global evidence that is really quite overwhelming and is positive.
Some people look for the physical and scientific evidence to support their decisions to accept this as truth. Others are very willing to listen to messages being brought to humanity from our galactic families through a medium known as channeling. Others still are the ones who can rely on personal experience or memory of having been on ships or having had personal contact with members of our galactic families. There are those who can read between the lines of certain Hollywood movies, and then there are those who believe celebrities, such as, for example, Will Smith on a recent interview with Chris Moyles from BBC Radio 1 on YouTube.
I was at the White House with my family, and we were getting a tour, and Barack and Michelle and Sasha and Malia, nice. And it's me and Jada and the kids, and we're walking through the White House. And the night before, Jaden had said to me, Dad, I got to ask the president about the aliens, I was like, dude, No, it's not cool. No, it's not cool. It's embarrassing.
You have to take that opportunity.
No, you don't.
Yeah, because he's your son. So all you do is go, I'm sorry.
I was like, Jaden,
question?
do not ask the president. So we get into the situation room, and Jaden gets the look in his eyes, and he leans over. He says, Dad, what's my punishment? And I was like, Jaden, do not. So he looked, and, Barack is talking about the situation room, and Jaden says, excuse me, Mr. President. And I was like, hey, Barack, man, hey, listen, Jaden. And Barack said, don't tell me. And in perfect form, like, this is why he's the president, he stopped and looked at Jaden and said, the aliens, right? And I was like, oh, shoot. And he said, okay, I can neither confirm nor deny the existence of extraterrestrials, but I can tell you if there had been a top secret meeting, and if there would have had to have been a discussion about it, it would have taken place in this room.
Oh!
And Jaden was like,
that's big.
He's like, I told you, Dad, I told you it's aliens. I'm like,
see, now he's going to watch Men in Black 3 and think it's a fly-on-the-wall documentary about his dad. And is he still grounded then from that incident?
Yeah, no. He's got about 8 or 9 more months.
Okay.
Embarrassing for the president.
But you should look into this. You got to find out.
Come on, man.
You got to find out.
Listen, here's the deal.
Aliens.
I know. I have the top secret information. I just can't share it. You don't think I've made all of these movies and not been briefed by the White House?
It makes sense now.
Of course. I know. I just can't tell you.
Will Smith's an alien. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying.
Oh, man. My son, every conspiracy theory, anything you throw at him, he loves it, believes it. And
how old is Jaden now?
13.
Wow, really?
13, yes. He is.
You're not going to hold him down. He's going to ask what he wants.
I know.
It suddenly begins to make sense why Will Smith is one of the actors who consistently gets roles related to this topic. Notice also that Will Smith neither confirms nor denies Moynes' comment that Smith is himself a member of our galactic families. Those familiar with the issue of disclosure will absolutely recognize this as soft disclosure from official sources, in this case both political and entertainment. If the conversation happened exactly as Smith describes, one may ask how Obama himself knew that Jaden was going to ask that question. This may raise speculation that this visit to the White House was a planned attempt to release information, but through the vehicle of an informal visit and through entertainment. Either way, it is simply great. There is evidence to suggest that employees of the elitist cabal have been involved in black-budget projects that have reverse-engineered galactic ship technologies, and that some of the alleged sightings worldwide may have been ships made by humans. Although these sightings may not have been legitimate galactic sightings, the fact remains that the technology itself was of a non-Earth origin, and although officials and media may pass it off as military tests, the story was not revealed as to the origins of the technology itself. Regardless of what your particular requirement is for finally understanding that we are not alone and that, in fact, we are now embarking on an exciting reunion with members of our galactic families, there is more than an abundance of evidence if one is merely willing to explore and understand it. The question then becomes one of discernment. The elitist cabal has been deathly afraid of people of the world knowing the truth about their lies and frauds, but also their cover-up of information that has the potential to radically recreate our world into health, true peace, and abundance for all. They are desperately trying to plant disinformation agents within the truth movement in order to fragment or separate people from uniting. They know that their lies are being exposed. We have heard before that many of their weapons of mass destruction have been neutralized or removed. One of their final cards is to turn the truth movement upon each other. It appears that they are now beginning to release the truth about their activities, but notice the advice that these sources give in telling people how to prepare for or react to this truth. This does not necessarily make one a disinformation agent, and this is where going into the heart requires you to listen very closely to the words, the tone, and to try and read between the lines in the message. CVN seeks to look a bit more deeply at these issues of truth and discernment, but in relation to each individual soul. From the human perspective, almost all that is truth is actually subjective truth. It is relative to the individual interpreting the information. The information is interpreted according to numerous filters or criteria of separation that have been fed to the people of the world. These filters include race, religion, culture, age, gender, orientation, class, caste, physical mental ability, political beliefs, and so forth. What is true for one individual in any one moment may not necessarily be true the following day, week, or year. Therefore, finding information that resonates with each individual can only be done by the individual. Though many groups and individuals try, no one can claim to bring truth to all individuals in exactly the same way, and especially if that truth seeks to enslave, control, and dominate a population. CVN references sources that would be considered unconventional, unofficial, and perhaps worse according to those claiming to be professional in journalism. Mainstream journalism might even laugh at this journalism, although I am becoming increasingly confident any laughter they dare would be a very nervous laughter, for they will be very interested in seeing how this type of journalism is received. For decades, the mainstream media has pawned off their stories and their sources as truth. It has been said that if you say a message loud enough and long enough, the masses will accept it as truth. This was certainly the case for the lies of 9/11. The media stories that suggested the buildings came down in a style similar to a controlled demolition were quickly pulled from the airwaves, replaced with establishment messages that were to attempt to brainwash the people of the world. Ultimately, what comes down to truth is that which each individual accepts as truth, and what a population is willing to accept as its truth. The mainstream media is losing its power to manipulate and control. People are going for news elsewhere. The success of CVN so far indicates that people are looking for something else in their newscasts. CVN is attempting to deliver what it believes that people are now looking for, in an attempt to force the mainstream media into bringing more heart, more integrity, more credibility, more transparency, and more accountability to its profession. Does this mean that every source CVN references is truth? No. The original vision of journalism was to tell a story in such a way so as to allow the viewer or listener to determine what he or she felt was relevant to her or him at that moment. Journalism became a tool for shaping public opinion instead of empowering the public to formulate their own opinions. As we witness the collapse of the elitist cabal around us and witness the rise of people coming forth to share the information that they know, it presents challenges, even for those who consider themselves among the lightworker community, to guide people to sources that are sincere and operating with integrity for the larger goal of humanity and our planet. There is no source, CVN included, that can be considered a good source or a bad source. It is merely a source. What is good or not can only be determined by you, dear listener, and it becomes hard because we have no way of knowing if a source will be good or bad for someone else, because we do not understand that individual and what he or she is looking for in her life path or his life path in the search for truth. We do not understand the experiences that each individual has had, or why they may be needing certain lessons respective to their spiritual growth. We may have the best intentions in offering sources to others, but ultimately it is up to the individual to decide what serves as truth in that moment. We can only honor those for their free will choices to accept or reject sources. Arguably, most people will say that the ultimate goal is to create a world that has greater love, health, peace, harmony with abundance for all. How this ultimate goal is achieved is as uniquely different and yet equally beautiful as there are souls on this planet. How a message is communicated is as important as how the individual communicating this message tries to be the example of that message. As Gandhi is credited with saying, "Be the change that you wish to see in the world." Many sources are now appearing with information from all realms, scientific, spiritual, mystical, astrological, and others seeking to communicate more or less the same message, but in their own uniquely different language. Our planet is undergoing profound and significant change. It is change that can no longer be avoided. This is an unchangeable, absolute truth. How this unchangeable truth plays out will depend largely upon the subjective truths of all individuals in how they see their relation to life at this time. Life is all things physical, non-physical, visible, and invisible that support and sustain the presence of everything, both on and beyond Gaia. What is your relation to everything around you? Is it love? Is it fear? Ultimately, it comes down to one of these two questions, and the world you experience will flow from this. What is interesting to observe at this time is a polarization forming among sources themselves, and as one listens to their respective messages, one can get a sense or feeling as to where their hearts and intentions are lying. Is the message based in love, or is it based in fear? Most of the more recent current events sources have been talking about a purging of the elitist cabal from positions of power within our society. Within many of those same messages, there is talk about creating a new system or a new planet of higher consciousness. If peace, according to one country's understanding of it, involves the submission and surrender of another country, is it peace? In creating a new Gaia, would you want this new planet to begin with energies of hatred, fear, revenge, and negativity? If you want to create a new planet of true peace, health, love, freedom, harmony, and abundance for all, it is going to require humanity to let go of negativity and embrace something much stronger and for many much harder. Thankfully, at this time, humanity is beginning to remember and awaken to its higher divine self with the energies of love, light, compassion, and forgiveness. Are the messages challenging you to bring greater love and light to the world at this time, or are the messages warning you, preparing you for wars, pandemics, or other negativities? There is no right nor wrong, but whichever choice you make, you're right. This is the reality you will experience. The truth movement alternative media appear to be fragmenting as far as whether or not Obama is one of the good guys. Here is why learning to filter and discern without judgment becomes the key for you. The elitist cabal and their disinformation agents seem to still be trying very hard to discredit Obama and turn public opinion against him, which further reinforces CVN's personal feeling that Obama must be doing something right. Many will know Alex Jones. I respect that he has the courage to expose truth, and it has helped many people to awaken, so I salute him. I have to ask the questions, however. Where is the love in his messages? Why does he never address the existence of our galactic families and the technologies that could change our planet almost overnight? Why do his messages seem to consistently call people to some form of rebellion. It was a couple of months ago that a polarization occurred between Kerry Cassidy of Project Camelot and Robert Dean, a disclosure whistleblower. Mr. Dean had had a profound contact experience and near-death experience. He came back a softer and more humble presence in the disclosure movement. Kerry's interview style changed dramatically after this, and she became more aggressive towards him, trying to bring him back to the old Bob Dean that Kerry resonated with. This brought a fair bit of reaction towards her treatment of him. Pentagon whistleblower Drake, on May 16th, offers messages that do not support Obama, and he is lately focusing more on militias and extensive periods of time where people will have to prepare and be able to sustain themselves for longer periods of time. He acknowledges that there has been divine galactic intervention within the military in neutralizing weapons, but he is stopping short of recognizing the role that they are playing in the overall changes. Drake also does talk about building community and the importance of treating others as you would want to be treated. His approach to creating the overall goal is slightly more fear-based, even if the intention is honorable. Drake still chooses to keep his identity secret. There is nothing wrong with this, although it may suggest that he still does not have the confidence that the cabal is being neutralized peacefully by external forces, including the galactic families. Drake was asked his opinion about Bill Brockbrader and Brockbrader's video announcement that Obama was one of the good guys.
Where the interviewer asked you point blank if Obama was going to be arrested. You said yes, and now Bill Wood has been coming out over the last week or so and saying, he's been hinting that Obama may be a so-called good guy. What's your take on that?
I'd ask Bill Wood to show me, because I haven't seen Obama do nothing proactive or correct in terms of our country since he's been in office. Bill Wood's entitled to his opinion, just that simple. I'm not going to entertain specific thoughts and things from Mr. Wood, because there are questions about the man himself that I don't make good allowances for.
In the last week or so, a series of messages have been coming out from Bill Brockbrader, formerly Bill Wood. Those in the lightworker circles who are familiar with the changes taking place on the planet may see Bill's messages as more in tune with the 5D reality that is unfolding upon Earth. Bill Brockbrader has now taken a pro-Obama approach and seems to understand that Obama knows what is going on and is working towards creating this better world, even if it meant playing the game, to help expose the corrupt institutions controlling the U.S. government and the executive office. Bill appears to be willing to see the good, and he even admitted in this interview that hearing the news was very hard for him because he was originally very against Obama and spoke out many times against him. He was able to look at the information and allow his consciousness to expand because he could see the info as being truth for him. Bill has now courageously come forward as himself, not using a secret identity. This would seem to demonstrate a fifth-dimensional act of knowing oneself and having the confidence of all unfolding for the highest good, and perhaps gives a greater sense of confidence and calm to the people that the elitist cabal is truly being stopped, because he no longer chooses to hide behind his identity. Does he get everything right? No.
Drake and Beata are kind of in a coming out of the gates, and it's like bam, 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 all this stuff's coming at them, and they're trying to stay focused. Mm-hmm. And that, that's the priority, and so we're okay. And we support them, and just do what you got to do, and we'll be okay.
Yeah.
I believe that Drake may have been too busy to understand Bill's full history. We're kind of having some issues there with them, and you know what? It's okay. They can vet us out for as long as they want. Our intentions are pure, and like we said, it's just information we're bringing forward. We'd hope people wouldn't succumb to divide and conquer mentality or shoot the messenger mentality, and we completely understand why people would have an adverse reaction to this information. We took that into consideration ahead of time, but Bill felt his source was reliable enough that it was worth the risk.
Listen to the words, the tones, and feel the energies of each and ask yourself which one you resonate more closely to. There is no right or wrong. It is choices. You, the listener, form your own criteria for what you are looking for as your truth. Both sources have elements of truth.
Well, if you don't acquire exactly what you're after, you probably get something that you probably be more happy with, more enjoyable, or better for the family, or whatever. So, and that's the part where you get into divine intervention.
Like, I look at everything from a philosophical holographic principle, and the idea that problems are driven by solutions, and the idea that there are multiple possibilities. And so if he's bringing forth information, an information set, inevitably we are all responsible for co-creating the outcome.
Both talk about each human being responsible for co-creating what he or she wishes to experience. So if you are responsible for co-creating, ask yourself, which would you rather co-create from these messages?
Now you understand the problems that we deal with in terms of trying to awaken people to the fact that they have a lot to learn and they need to do it quickly. This is a serious matter, serious enough they can come and pull you out of your house at this point, and in some places get away with it. A lot of places they won't be able to do that and wouldn't attempt it.
You could look at what I just put out as a huge piece of the puzzle and something that we need to wrap our arms around and get ready for, but it isn't being seen as that. It's being seen as an impossible barrier that couldn't possibly be. What we've seen is that those impossible barriers, just like back in late January, early February, when the love and lighters and, hope is enough was a bunch of hocus pocus. But now we're seeing that positive intentions, co-creation, all of that is much, much more real and much, much more evident in the world, and more changes have taken place.
A fairly new source, Cobra, is also offering positive information, albeit from a still hidden identity. I do not know enough about this particular source at this time to formulate an observation one way or the other. All sources have had their moments of sharing things that I felt were true to me, and other times when their words did not feel true to me. Just because a few words did not feel right does not mean, however, that the source is automatically discounted. You only have to choose which energy you wish to have more of in your life and begin sharing it and co-creating with it. CVN will use material from any source where it is honestly believed that the intention of the message is to create a better world based in love, as opposed to a world that must go through extensive periods of chaos, fear, and destruction. The messages from galactic families have said numerous times that this will not occur, and in this moment that feels like truth to me personally. This is the reality that I am working towards creating, and this is the reality that Cosmic Vision News seeks to co-create with all of you choosing the same path. The public will know in their hearts what is true at this time. Pundits and official sources for the mainstream media are losing their credibility. Their words are not even close to reflecting the reality that is now unfolding, and it is very clear that they do not understand what is happening. They are merely trying to sell the same message with the mistaken belief that people will magically buy into it again and restore the world to their way of understanding and reporting it. Newsflash, that will not happen. When they communicate this, are they asking you to find compassion and forgiveness, or is the information carrying energies of negativity? CVN is co-creating that this story will help bring greater awareness and love to those choosing it when discerning messages from any source regarding any piece of information that comes out into the open at this time. Take what you feel like and leave the rest. Many people worldwide are starting to get the idea about how corrupt the banking system is. Many are content to ignore it because they have no desire to understand it. Others have simply resigned themselves to the fact that they can never do anything about it. One individual begs to take exception to that. This individual was recently chosen to speak at a meeting of the Public Banking Institute of Canada. Although there are variations, The Canadian banking system is very much like the central banking system of most countries around the world, controlled by an elitist few, but rapidly collapsing by a population awakening to what is going on and learning the power they really have to do something about it. The speaker must be doing something right, as the particular YouTube video referenced has over 294,000 hits. Now you may be saying, oh no, not another speaker giving an explanation of a banking system. Why can't someone just give me a summary of it all in a language that a child could understand? Well, Cosmic Vision News brings you one better. Here is Victoria Grant commenting on the banking system in fluent, childlike language, because she is 12 years old.
Have you ever wondered why Canada is in debt? Have you ever wondered why the government forces Canadians to pay so many taxes? Have you ever wondered why the bankers from the largest private banks are becoming wealthier and the rest of us are not? Have you ever wondered why the gross national debt is over $800 billion? Or why we are spending $160 million a day on the interest of the national debt? That's $60 billion a year. Have you ever wondered who receives the $60 billion? What I have discovered is the banks and the government have colluded to financially enslave the people of Canada. I will share with you 3 important points of reference, which will hopefully spark enough interest and concern for you to continue the research on your own and to engage your government to stop this criminal act against the people of Canada. First, we will briefly examine the Bank of Canada. Second, we will see how our banking system works today. And lastly, I will offer a viable solution that we can petition our government to implement. A very little-known figure in Canadian history is J.O. Gradon McGeer. He was a lawyer, Member of Parliament, and Mayor of Vancouver. His contribution to Canada is probably the greatest in our history. He championed the creation of the National Bank of Canada, whose sole purpose is to create and manage Canada's money. It was formed on July 3, 1934, and owned by all Canadians. Until the 1970s, because of the Bank of Canada, Canada's national debt was held at a constant, manageable level until the government decided to implement what we now have as our modern-day banking system that is robbing the Canadian people. So how are they robbing us? Allow me to explain how our private banks and government work today. First, the Canadian government borrows money from the private banks. They then lend the debt-based money to Canada with compounded interest. The government then continues to increase taxation of Canadians year after year in order to pay back the interest on the exponentially growing national debt. What results is inflation, less real money for Canadians to spend into our economy, and the real money being used to pad the pockets of the banks. Also, the government gave the banks the ability to loan out money that doesn't exist in the form of loans. When a bank gives you a mortgage, which literally means a debt pledge or a loan, they don't actually give you money. They click a key on a computer and generate the fake money out of thin air. They don't actually have it in their bank vaults. Presently, the banks only have $4 billion on reserve, but they have loaned out over $1.5 trillion. To quote Graham Towers, each and every time a bank makes a loan, a new bank credit is created. New deposits, brand new money. Broadly speaking, all new money comes out of a bank in the form of loans. As loans are debt, then under the present system, all money is debt. What I find interesting is even Jesus, in Matthew 21, drove up the money changers in the temple because they were manipulating the currency to steal money from the people. The private banks are just like the money changers in Matthew 21. They are defrauding and robbing the people of Canada, thus their freedom, and they need to be stopped. How should the banking system work? In an infamous interview, Mr. McGeer asked Mr. Towers, "Can you tell me why a government with power to create money should give that power away to a private monopoly and then borrow that which Parliament can create itself back at interest to the point of national bankruptcy? Mr. Towers replied, if Parliament wants to change the form of operating the banking system, then certainly that is within the powers of Parliament. In other words, if the Canadian government needs money, they can borrow it directly from the Bank of Canada. The people would then pay fair taxes to repay the Bank of Canada. This tax money would in turn get injected back into our economic infrastructure and the debt would be wiped out. Canadians would again prosper with real money as the foundation of our economic structure and not debt money. Regarding the debt money owed to the private banks, such as the Royal Bank, we would simply have the Bank of Canada print the money owing, hand it over to the private banks, and then clear the debt with the Bank of Canada. And yes, we have the power and lawful right to do so. In conclusion, it has become painfully obvious, even for me, a 12-year-old
There is evidence to
Canadian,
suggest that employees of the elitist cabal have been involved in black budget projects that reverse engineered galactic ship technologies.
What will we do to ensure that the next generation will live free and clear of the debt-based economy that enslaves them to the banks? Margaret Mead said the following, and I hope that all of you remember this. Never doubt that a small group of people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Thank you.
From supermoons to solar eclipses. Galactic Free Press contributor Andreas shares information this week relating to a potentially spectacular celestial event available to only a few countries this weekend. On May 20th, for the first time in 26,000 years, the Sun, Moon, and the constellation that is responsible for our spiritual evolution, the Pleiades, will align under an annular eclipse, also known as a ring of fire eclipse. In an annular eclipse, the moon is a bit further away, allowing for the outer ring of the sun to shine around the shadow of the moon. Spiritual groups recognize the power of this eclipse as having the potential to manifest even more quickly changes that are already rapidly progressing upon our planet. For regular astronomers, it is merely an opportunity to simply see a rare eclipse, even if the spiritual significance is not known. Russia Today, RT.com, reports Japanese people are scrambling for an opportunity to witness this event, as the last one to occur in Japan was around 173 years ago. Mainstream TV programs have been giving extensive coverage on the event, when astrological events are not normally covered. The central focal point of the eclipse is to pass in direct alignment with at least two known spiritual locations in the world, Mount Fuji in Japan and Mount Shasta in Northern California. A number of First Nation and Aboriginal cultures have revered the Pleiadian galactic family, as many believe that they are direct descendants of this particular family. Marcus Mason, in another article from the Galactic Free Press website, writes that solar eclipses have a profound effect on the Earth's subtle energy grids and ley lines. All powerful events that occur on Earth leave energetic memory imprints on the Earth's energy grids. These can become amplified and perpetuated by the energy flow through the grids, which is fed by the movements of the Sun, Moon, and planets overhead. Powerful negative imprints, such as war, misuse of power, or emotional trauma, can block or damage the energy flow in a particular region of the planet, causing the energy to become distorted. Eclipses provide opportunities to release these negative energy imprints and enable new, positive patterns to become encoded into the Earth's grids. Hamish Miller, the renowned UK dowser, found that as an eclipse shadow passes overhead, the Earth's subtle energy lines power down to almost nothing, becoming indiscernible to dowsing. Then, as the sun's light returns, the grids spring back into life. This is a bit like deleting an old computer program. loading a new one, and then rebooting the system. Annular eclipses have a very subtle effect on the energy grids, releasing, transforming, and healing the etheric energy blueprint that can enable new spiritual archetypes to emerge into collective consciousness. Eclipses mean changes, good and everything in between. Eclipses always escort insignificant events. They intensely magnify and are living parenthesis, forcing us to look at what we have turned our heads away from. Solar eclipses mean new beginnings, this one being May 20th, and a lunar eclipse on June 4th will represent a finishing of things. With both Bill Brockbrader and Drake indicating that events must get underway within the very near future, the eclipse energies of birth will allow the new consciousness to manifest more quickly, and an upcoming lunar eclipse in June will allow the older energies to be removed. These are very powerful eclipses, each with their own gifts and own set of rules. As the Pleiadian stellar connection renews itself, new crystalline geometries will be birthed that complement the existing light connection. Archangel Michael shares a little bit more info on the eclipse via Linda Dillon.
What happens is the energy in the very air, in the atmosphere, becomes more electrically charged. The energy flows more rapidly and more freely. Now, for some of you, it may flow so rapidly and so freely that you feel like you have your finger in a light socket. So be sure that you are grounded. The energy becomes supercharged, and so it is a chance to accomplish even more in a very brief period of time. The eclipse will bring about feelings of the darkness being shed within you, the darkness that you have felt on the planet being shed, and sometimes that has need to happen, and it also can allow you to release that shadow part that so many of you can keep hidden. So that is more of a collective feeling.
This week, a visualization event has been called for by disclosure source Cobra. CVN joins the call for as many lightworkers as possible to aid in the manifestation for global and galactic change as quickly and as peacefully as possible. Cobra describes a bit of the event and how the visualization activity will proceed, with reading provided by Graham Douillet.
Masses will gather and visualize the liberation of our planet from the tyranny of all non-physical negative entities, so that for the first time in our history, we will have the chance to co-create our own spiritual destiny as free beings of light on Earth and connect with the Source without obstruction. We need to have 144,000 people doing this visualization with focus to achieve the desired effect. A powerful beam of light will emanate from the galactic central sun, descend directly through the Pleiades toward the Earth, and will be grounded along.
There is evidence to suggest that employees of the elitist cabal have been involved in black budget projects that reverse engineered galactic ship technologies.
It will burn through all fear programming of negative non-physical entities and will reboot the energy grid around the planet at the exact moment when the shadow of the moon will touch the mountaintop of Mount Shasta. After the reboot, we will be able to co-create our spiritual destiny with light. Instructions. Relax your mind and body by watching your breath for a few minutes. Visualize a pillar of electric blue light emanating from the galactic central sun, going through your body to the center of the Earth. Keep this pillar of light active for a few minutes. Then visualize all negative entities around the Earth being removed from etheric and astral planes along with their negative spiritual technologies and magical tools, and all those entities being escorted into the light by the non-physical freedom fighters of the light. Visualize this process taking place worldwide, peacefully and smoothly. Visualize the world finally being free from spiritual slavery, free from all evil archons, reptilians, demons, elementals, and all other negative non-physical beings. Visualize the vibration of the etheric and astral planes getting lighter and brighter until all dark beings are gone and only light remains. Visualize a bright new spiritual future for humanity with angels, fairies, dolphins, unicorns, spiritual guides, and all other beings of light inhabiting etheric and astral planes. Visualize all wounds of humanity being healed, all humanity being inspired and guided, with everybody having their own connection with their own soul and the source. Please do this visualization as instructed, and do not change it, as otherwise it will not have the desired effect.
And my apologies for the technical glitches there. I was really looking forward to some piece of good news coming out of the G8 meetings before airtime, but unfortunately it seems no news is going to be coming out at this time. CBN, or this newscast, will be updated and reloaded should any significant events unfold over the next coming few days. As it was a bit slow this week, I chose at the last minute to play a YouTube video from Sheldon Neidl introducing the Galactic Family Group that has been primarily responsible for all the learning that we have gone through. Sheldon introduces to us the Anunnaki and tells us a little bit more about their history.
Let's look at the Anunnaki, then the Dark Overlords. Anunnaki, one of the names it means in Sumerian or Sumerian is they come from the skies. The Anunnaki, as I said, were originally rebel Pleiadians and Centaurians. They were invited in by the Atlanteans in the last part of the empires. There are 3 Atlantean empires. There's the original empire, there's the second empire, and then there's the third empire. There's this later third empire which had the Anunnaki in it, plus another group of dark non-humans that had come here as part of a vast posting by the Anchara Alliance that were part of the process to finally try to destroy the last of the fully conscious Earth humans that were in exile, that were the sons and daughters of the leader group of the Atlanteans. So now, let's look at these guys. This is Anu, the so-called father of the Sumerian gods. Now, in all the pantheons that are created all over the world, in India, in Egypt, in Sumeria, in the native parts of the Americas, all over the Pacific, we have sky gods. These sky gods, for the most part, are very warlike. And when I get into talking about Lemuria, I talk about Hawaii, and you can see how the remnants of the Lemurian civilization that was taken over by the Polynesians, who represented the Sumerian, very super violent sky gods, you can see the difference between how that all amalgamated together. But anyway, let's go back to just the Anunnaki themselves and not talk about the fact that this was a worldwide phenomenon, because they were in charge of all of us no matter where we were. So this is Anu. Whenever you see them, they have on their pilot hat, which is this strange, weird thing, and they're always shown as sky gods, so they have their wings. Now, Anu was, as I said, the father of a whole pantheon of beings, and here you can see this whole process of the many types of sky gods. And these names are repeated in other pantheons, as I said, throughout the area of history. So, for instance, Zeus was father of the gods, as Anu was father of the gods. Brahma is the main general father of the Hindus. The warrior part of the leaders is, for instance, Shiva, and this is just to show you India and Sumeria is Enlil, so Shiva and Enlil. The destroyers, the warriors. Then there's the feminine fertility, the real life, the wisdom, the female wisdom, the nurturing energies that provide for the eternal coming forth of the human race and allowing it to keep going forward. And as it says here, the Anunnaki have many names. So you have Durga, Nema is the same being in the pantheon of the Sumerians, and Hathor is the Egyptian. Now the Anunnaki had to find a way to get us to worship them, to declare ourselves believers that they were our creators, because they needed our energy. When we actually worshiped them, we were giving out our energies. We were giving away our power to them. In doing this, it allowed them to survive, because these energies, once they get on the dark side, need constant renewal in order to survive, in order to maintain their immortality. So that's why they needed us to be total believers that they were our creators, and that we were not part of a great fall that had been basically instigated by them and a lot of their cohorts, namely the Atlanteans and the people from Anchara. So now they created a biblical-like creation myth. Now when, for instance, the Hebrews went into Babylonia, had the Babylonian captivity, they began to see this creation myth. Also the time when Moses was in Egypt and was thoroughly schooled in the Egyptian mysteries, once again the same creation myth. So all these myths together basically created one myth. So it's biblical, it's Sumerian, it's Egyptian, and it goes all the way through all the ancient cultures. So this is the belief that humans were created from something lesser, whether they say clay or from apes, as it's shown here. They were made human by the amazing abilities of the Anunnaki, and therefore we needed to fully create a oneness with them and to worship them. So this is the Anunnaki then. They simply used us to create the energies to allow them to survive. Once again, they were rebels invited in by the Atlanteans who took over after the fall of Atlantis. The Anunnaki became the intermediary for nearly 13 millennia between man and the dark galactic lords. And remember, there was a time at which there would be a divine intervention which would back up and change the dark galactic lords and would change the whole process of this planet and how it was to react to the energies of these overlords. Now, let's look at the Anunnaki and the change. Now, as we said here, the whole concept for allowing them to do what they were doing, and we'll get into why all this when we tie it together, is that they believed in heaven that we needed, as part of this divine plan, we needed to be able to go through the dark energies, to experience it, to understand it, to be a part of it, and to take that experience and that wisdom from it and use it when we became fully conscious again to help this incredible galaxy become light again. Now, this is the kicker. Archangel Michael comes as part of this prophecy. He was said by the divine that when the time came and this lease, so to speak, that the Anunnaki had been given was up, he would come and would talk directly to the head honchos, so to speak, the dark lords themselves, the Anchara, and he would create out of Anchara a change. And sure enough, Anchara listened to Michael, listened to the energies of the light, and made a decision. They decided it was time to end the darkness and change everything into light. And so an energy went out to all parts of this galaxy, to all its dark parts and its darkest places, to say that the light had come and the light was changing everything. So now this great call had been sent. They listened to Michael, and Chara then asked all the major empires of the dark that had basically lorded over this galaxy and created one war after another, one great discrepancy, creating death among all who were not immortal, all who were not fully conscious, and to create within this something new, to create within it an amalgamation of light and dark that would become an even greater light. And this was the Treaty of Anchara, signed between the Galactic Federation and the Anchara Alliance in the mid-90s. It changed everything. Suddenly the dark was telling the Anunnaki that the time had come to stop what they were doing, to not complete those incredibly bad plans that they had for all of us on this world, and to change it and to allow us to become fully conscious, we must now become, the Ancharans told our friends the Anunnaki, we must become light. And so the Anunnaki, believing in this, seeing what was happening in this galaxy, retreated to Nibiru, retreated to that planet of the crossings that has this 3,600-year orbit, and went to this former Galactic Federation battle planet that had been abandoned after the end of the destruction of what today we are calling, when it is reconstructed, Pax, which many people know as Maldek. And they went forth back to their world and waited for the Galactic Federation to return. And they told those people that had been the intermediaries between them, being the Anunnaki, and the people, to change as well. These were the people that we call the Illuminati, the Illuminoids, the Illuminari. They have all different kinds of names. There had originally been a council, an Anunnaki council of 12. This represented the 12 major gods, led, of course, at the head of the table, Anu. And there was a committee of 300, along with the so-called kings of the world. Each section you see here had a king. There was a Latin American, African marginal bloc king. There was the Colombian Golden Trial, Afghanistan drugs king, etc. All these kings were now told, as well as the Anunnaki themselves, the various families that were made it up, that the time had come for their rule to end. The time had come to allow the light to come forth, to allow the Galactic Federation to come forth, to allow a whole new age to begin on this planet. Not an age of darkness, but an age of light. And the Anunnaki then went and became advisors to the Galactic Federation on first contact. Their task was to explain to the first contact team who are these people that they trained and protected for so many millennia, and how do they think, and what can be done to make them understand that indeed this great change had happened. So as it says here, the Anunnaki became advisors for the first contact team on the ways of the Dark Cabal. The Anunnaki intended to return to their many former homeworlds once this first contact began, so that while we were returning to being fully conscious and becoming rulers of this magnificent solar system and guardians of all the magnificent beings that make it up, all the planets and the sun, etc., they would then return to their homeworlds, because Nibiru would be converted into a natural world. This would be done by the various beings in heaven who had come into this world to create this new reality.
Sheldon Neidl will be having another webinar coming up this week. This is a much anticipated webinar, as he will be giving a more in-depth look at timelines that are moving us closer to the announcements. Sheldon will be looking at the timeline for changing our legal systems, changing our financial systems, changing our government systems. He will also look at the payoff, freedom and personal sovereignty, while also ultimately learning our true origin, disclosure, and the shift to full consciousness. The webinars will be held on Sunday, May 20th, from 12 to 1:30 p.m. Pacific Time, and on Thursday, May 24th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Registration is $15 US. For more information and to register for the webinar, you can go to the website www.paoweb.com. And if it is meaningful to do so, please consider also going to the Avaz petition website to sign the petition calling for disclosure and the release of 6,000 plus technologies that could change our planet and our lives almost overnight. www.bit.ly/small w, capital P, capital M, small w, capital R, small b. So that is the Unfolding Consciousness news around the world this week. Cosmic Vision News is a part of the Inlight radio group of programs heard at this local time each week. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I'm Jeffrey West, reminding you not to ask what you can take from the world that exists, but rather, what can you offer to the world that is awakening? Until our next moment of now, stay grounded in love and keep your eyes to the skies. Disclosure is unfolding all around you. Namaste.
This is Thank You White Knights, and I hope you enjoyed this video. For updates and to go to the source of this article, please find the link below the YouTube screen while watching in YouTube. For the latest news and updates, please visit thankyouwhiteknights.com.